The Divestor to pro-black pipeline remains undefeated. There is always a black simp around to come to a Divestor's rescue and take care of her pre-made biracial family. Mikki Kendall, the hood feminist, is the worst type. Here she is in her own words talking about her racist ex-husband. So she found a simp to marry her and calls him husbeast, although her white ex was a thug. Not only that, she makes excuses for his racism and claims that he wasn't really racist towards black women, even though she said it herself. He was racist to her and her family. Even when the white man does them wrong, they try to pretty up the wrongdoing.
Do you know any Caucasian people that can actually trace their family tree back to slavery?
Yes, the white side of my family. They still own the land that they owned my ancestors on too. It's not that hard to find those families.
His advances. Do you know what that means? It rhymes with grape. But
the actual video is great and you should watch it, but the comments. Oh, this clock app tries me. Jesus, this clock app tries me. People in the comments are trying to say that because he traveled with Sally Hemings, Thomas Jefferson wasn't assaulting her. After all, she could have freed herself in France. They neglect to mention that not only was she enslaved by him, so was the rest of her family. In fact, he owned everyone she knew and loved, and the only way she could have gotten free would have been to have left them to his tender mercies. And by tender mercies, I mean the way that he brutally abused the people he enslaved at his plantation and elsewhere. Stop making up lies about Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson.
Reason why I don't think white women are going to do much about these abortion bans.
You should watch all the videos and the stitch that this is attached to, but I also want to talk about something. When Crutches and Spice says she doesn't expect white women to do much about abortion bans, I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, we're fighting, and that's great for those of you who are doing something. But white women did this to themselves, and by proxy did it to the rest of us. And they're about to look at the rest of us to clean up this mess. And I know someone's going to say, well, I personally didn't vote for it. Cool. But the stats say that some nearly 60% voted for the politicians that made the ban in Texas possible. The stats say that consistently, when it comes to the Republican voting base, it's white women, not just white men, but heavily, hardcore white women. And there's going to be this temptation to say, black women save us, whoever save us. We cannot save you from yourselves. A, it's not our job, but B, we literally cannot save you from yourself. You have to save yourselves. You are going to have to look around and decide whether or not white supremacy is more important to you than reproductive freedom, whether or not white supremacy is more important to you than actual equality, whether or not white supremacy is more important to you than your own safety, future, financial stability, whatever. Because if you don't decide to combat white supremacy, all of the women of color, all of the BIPOC communities, marginalized communities that are pushing back, you're not our ally, you're our obstacle. So I need white women to really hear, not just grasp the words, but hear the thing behind the words. I need you to go look at those videos and understand that not only is your silence violence, but so is your refusal to recognize that you have power, that you have the power to, instead of interfering with someone's parenting, barbecuing, grilling, whatever, you have the power to combat white supremacy. Because if you don't fight for yourself, that's on you. But I'm going to tell you now that the key to power isn't going to be through white supremacy. The key to equality with white men isn't going to be through white supremacy, because the misogyny is baked right in. The misogyny is absolutely what that system hinges on. So you can keep fighting to stand next to them, but they're just going to stab you in the back. Just want to point that out. Hope it helps.
Very bad news. Millennials and Gen Z are the poorest generations in U.S. history. Not only do that...
So at some point, are we going to talk about how the wealth that you're describing was situated primarily in higher income white communities? Because I feel like when we have these generational conversations, we're ignoring the fact that black boomers didn't come out of Jim Crow with wealth. Black silent generation folks definitely didn't come through Jim Crow with wealth. Indigenous people definitely didn't come out of boarding schools and having to resist the complete extermination of their cultures with wealth. Asian communities, especially Japanese ones, didn't come out of internment with wealth. Black, Indigenous, and other POC communities did not come through those times with generational wealth. The wealth gap is widening, and you are not entitled to the proceeds of Jim Crow just because your parents got away with it. Thanks.
Why men are so shocked that women have decided we don't want to be a free maid and do your...
So you should watch this video, but I just want to say something. They're not shocked. They're enraged because they never bothered to get their weight up to be a good partner. They never bothered to get themselves in order, whether we are talking about finances or relationships or whatever. And they didn't do those things because misogyny told them they would never have to. Except then they got out in the real world and they discovered a couple things very quickly. A, they can't afford to buy someone who is a gold digger, right? They don't have any gold to dig. They can't afford to be obnoxious at work, to be a boss or any of those things, right? Because their fantasy of how those things worked and the reality were miles apart. And in many cases, what they want is a woman who is smart and successful to give up her dreams for them. And when they aren't worth that to anyone, it makes them angry. When they realize that women don't need them and that they're going to have to be a good partner to have a partner, they are irate, right? And even though we tend to talk about this in terms of the way that their misogyny impacts women, their misogyny is also impacting them because we are seeing increasingly the guys who never got the memo that they had to be a good partner finding out the hard way that the guys they call simps have the life that they wanted. You're far more inclined to take care of someone who is taking care of you. You're far more inclined to be the peace or the comfort or whatever of someone who provides you with peace and comfort. They never expected adulthood to involve a two-way street because they always wanted a puppet, a pet, a piece of property and that was shaped like a human woman, that behaved like a human woman. Now they are finding out that that is not possible. Their fantasies, usually power fantasies, are not appealing to anyone else, and they don't know what to do. And they can't even tell you how angry it makes them because you will rightfully immediately throw some handcuffs in their direction and keep it moving.
So let me get this straight. Racism, your ancestors and slavery never came to mind when you were getting ran through by white men in the military? Why all of a sudden did she become pro-black and a feminist once she got with a black simp? I am also going to add, why is it that she is complaining about white wealth yet she has a white ex-husband? Why doesn't she just go ask her white ex for alimony and child support if wealth is such an issue?
Because for those who are facing all of these issues from gun violence to housing, their first concern has to be staying alive long enough to fight for their rights. The movement has to do a better job of addressing displacement and hunger if it expects support for reproductive justice marches or for electing the first woman to be president of the United States. It's hard to believe that women will be better leaders when the feminist women you see gaining power not only don't help you, but are likely to actively participate in harming you.
So you are not hurting your simp black husband by making him waste his life taking care of you and your biracial child? Why make a black man pay for the sins of your white ex-husband? The Divestor to pro-black pipeline.